want to build things up, while Pierre Poilievre and his brokenist Conservative Party want to tear things down. We want to provide dental care for families. He says no. We're bringing an EV battery gigafactory plant to Canada and creating thousands of jobs. He says no. We put a price on pollution while giving money back to families. He says no. We want to protect and promote our two official languages. He says no. And he wants to shut down CBC Radio-Canada.
All right, there's some of Justin Trudeau's speech at the Liberal convention. And of course, he calls out Pierre Poilievre by name. That's a bit of a different go from what he used to do, which is kind of generally refer to the opposition leader. But Tom Mulcair, Pierre Poilievre, took the bait because here's some of what he had to say today.
Justin, I hate to keep coming back at you with these videos, but you won't debate me in person in the House of Commons. You keep running out the back door, skipping the debates altogether. So this is my only chance. You do have words for me when I'm not around, like at your Liberal Party convention, where you criticize me for not being woke. You said that people need to wake up and accept your woke ways. Well, let's define what your woke ways are.
Let's not. Thank you, Pierre. He's doing that while driving, by the way, Tom, just so you know. That's why the sound quality is not that great. Look, is this a change of course for Justin Trudeau? And is this a smart way to go about it, do you think?
They've been looking at red lights flashing on their dashboard for 6 months now, as Poilievre has been pummeling Trudeau in question period, the rare times that Trudeau does show up, has been making videos like this that are really catching on with young people and going viral. And his numbers are showing that he's consistently ahead of Trudeau. So, you know, there's an old saying, when what you're doing doesn't work, try something else. So the Liberals are obviously trying a more direct approach. They're beginning to criticize Poilievre personally. Now, I don't think it looks good on a prime minister, frankly, to be personally naming his adversary like that. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be a little bit above the fray. He is, after all, the prime minister. So Trudeau, I think, is the one who's taking the bait here. I think that Poilievre is just having a little bit of fun responding to him, because Trudeau should never have, just because this guy gets under his skin doesn't mean that he should be reacting like that.
Is it a mistake?
Oh, I think it's a huge political mistake, but I think that the Liberals were at the stage right now that they had to cause some sort of distraction. Trudeau's going away to London for the coronation. Now, nobody at all is going to blame him for that. That's part of his job. He has to go to the coronation, fair enough. But at the same time, he's been doing such a poor job of answering on all the issues involving Chinese government interference that he's got to get the heat off, and I think that that's what they were trying to do last night in front of a highly partisan crowd. But I don't know if you actually saw, that we had some nice clips there that we've just listened to, but I don't know if you saw some of the body language. Trudeau seemed singularly uncomfortable. I mean, he's a very physical guy. When he's putting on a show on the stage, he was wooden. He was reading off a teleprompter. It really wasn't a good night for him. And then today, for the little bit that he was still around this morning, I was actually surprised to see that he was still around for a bit today. But when he was around this morning, he was still caught trying to answer a very simple question. Why did you tell us that CSIS hadn't sent any of this your way? Whereas, in fact, CSIS had very much let your office and the people responsible for giving you security briefings, they were very much aware of what the Chinese government was doing in terms of threatening Michael Chong. So it's not been a good week. It's not been a good couple of months for Trudeau, because the Trudeau Foundation stuff is sticking to them like glue. It just won't go away. All the stuff about Chinese government interference in Canadian elections is not going away. So it's been quite rough.
So let's talk about Michael Chong. So he's been calling for the Chinese diplomat who allegedly targeted him to be expelled. And both the Prime Minister and Mélanie Joly are saying it's possible, it's kind of on the table, but that it's complicated. Is it really that complicated, Tom?
Well, when you've got stuff that the Chinese government might push back with, yes, it's complicated. So I was listening to the very stark wording of the Chinese replique. And, you've been at this for a while, some of the terminology, the way people answer. If it was the Russians, you just sort of go, Russians, they do everything from cheat at the Olympics to start wars that are completely illegal. You don't have to listen to anything that they say diplomatically or otherwise. But the Chinese play the game slightly differently. They're a very big, robust, strong country. They've got their own designs in the world. And sure, they play a very rough game in terms of interfering in other countries like they've been doing in Canada. That's why the Australians have pushed back so hard. That's why the Americans have pushed back so hard. People understand that they're not playing, with school children here. But with regard to Canada, I think we are behaving like school children. And I think that Trudeau, there must be something that's causing him to hold back. He won't have the inquiry. He's handed it off to David Johnston, who will, of course, call an inquiry, but it's actually up to Trudeau to do it. Then it'll matter who they put in. Is it going to be just a bunch of more Liberal Party hacks like they've been parading before the cameras so far? So it's really starting to, I talk to people across the country all day long. I do radio and media across the country all day long. And people calling in, people talking to us, they're just saying, look, even people who were on the Liberal side that said at the beginning of this are saying none of this is washing anymore. None of this works. Trudeau better come clean. He better call a real commission of inquiry, and I think that's where we are.
Better, should. This is what we said at the beginning, and here we are, a month later into this? It's still not going away, as you said. It seems to be getting worse. Obviously, the Prime Minister is aware of that. So at what point do you reach a breaking point and say, okay, I will in fact call for that commission now beyond what he said he would do with David Johnston?
Well, he should have done it a long time ago, because even though I consider David Johnston a friend, he's obviously in a conflictual position, because what was he doing just before he accepted this mandate from Trudeau? He was playing a key role at the Trudeau Foundation, which he's supposed to be looking into now. So you can't do that. You can't be a judge and a party in the same case. There's something else that I found out today from a very reliable senior source, is that the Liberals are going to pull the plug on this Parliament. That doesn't mean call an election. It means prorogation. Now, if that funny word rings a vague bell, it's because it's something Stephen Harper did. Yes, exactly. The famous prorogation. Then there have been other times when it's been done. So essentially what that means is this. All of the work of the current legislation drops. It also means that things can restart, because you're going to have a new speech from the throne to get the Parliament going again. In practical terms, what it means is that the stunts being used right now by the opposition parties. So what's been happening is the Conservatives, the Bloc, and the NDP have been getting together and convening, because they can do it, parliamentary committees to sit. They were going to be sitting all summer. So this would provide constant fodder for the opposition parties to be in the news, to be out there spinning. So by pulling the plug on the Parliament, there will be no committee hearings, because there are no committees that will exist. The legislation lapses, the committees lapse, and it doesn't start up again until the new speech from the throne. But in the meantime, your ministers are still your ministers. And what are they going to be doing? Going across the country all summer, making announcements, traveling on public money, something, of course, that they're allowed to do, but they'll just be handing out money, making announcements, handing out checks. So this is a way that the Liberals hope that they'll be able to spend the next few months changing the channel. Now, we'll see how good the Conservatives are at this or not. I have a feeling that the Conservatives are not going to have a heck of a lot of trouble tracking Trudeau and his ministers, following them, making announcements, and, of course, the media will have, well, except the CBC, the media will have the obligation to cover them.
So recent history, you mentioned Stephen Harper doing this. How did that play out?
Yeah.
Well, he won his battle. This was when Jack Layton and I played a key role in that with him at the time, we had made a deal with Stéphane Dion and the Liberals. We were going to topple the Conservative government. And when they got wind of it, they decided they were going to pull the plug. And then they went to Michaëlle Jean, and there was a big waiting game. Is Michaëlle Jean going to, succumb? Is she going to listen to Harper's order to prorogue? And the experts that Michaëlle Jean listened to. At the time, I was furious and said it was an absolutely wrong decision. Maybe I'll take a little bit of a step back now and say maybe Michaëlle Jean did get the right constitutional advice, and say that you have to listen to the Prime Minister. You're not the one running the country, he is. And so I think it was the right decision. But that's the one that we remember, because it got him out of that bind. And then by the time it was over, Dion was gone. They were bringing in Ignatieff. Everything started to change very fast, and the rest is history,
as they say.
I'm just thinking, won't it look bad for the Liberals? Like, it just, to me, it immediately gives a perception that they're not getting the work done.
They're terrified. Look, this guy Poilievre, I mean, he's a piece of work. He's not everybody's cup of tea. His base loves him. I find it very difficult to deal with as a politician. On a one-on-one level, it's going to surprise you to hear me say that he's actually quite engaging and funny. But his public persona is so off-putting. You just feel like turning off the TV, when the guy starts. But he's got his game. He's got his shtick. He's out there all the time. He's working very hard. One of the things that helped Trudeau win is his high energy level. Trudeau is the type of, he's never ready bunny. He never stops. He's always going. He's always going. And one of the things you'll see about Poilievre, he's outrunning Trudeau. He, and this is what he did during the campaign. Jean Charest sort of showed up and said, "Well, I'll be part of this race, and I'll, remind people that I showed my passport in 1995." Wrong. This is a new conservative party. There's a Tyrannosaurus Rex running after you, and you're a little sheep out there in the barnyard, and you're just going to get eaten. And that's what happened to Charest. Trudeau cannot believe. Like, I've watched Trudeau in question period. Trudeau starts to stutter and stammer. He's got prepared lines he can't even deliver. And when he finally does squeeze out a line, it's usually lame. And if he even gets a half decent one, Poilievre shoves it right back down his throat. So it's something that Trudeau's just not used to. But he better get used to it, or he's going to get caught the same way during the election campaign.
So, Tom, just to wrap up real quick, if that's in fact what happens, this proroguing of Parliament, does that mean election follow within 3 months, 6 months? Are you still looking then at a fall election?
They're keeping their options open for a fall election, but they're going to try to string it out as long as they can, because they realize that if they were to go now, there's just too much of a head of steam going for the Conservatives. There's too much stuff around the Chinese interference that they haven't dealt with, and haven't been honest with Canadians about. But once he's set up a commission, he's going to find some blue chip members of this commission. These are people that nobody's going to suspect are in the Liberals' pockets. And then every time he gets a question, he's going to say, well, that's why I constituted the best commission of inquiry in the history of the planet. Right. And so he's going to have that as every answer, and he'll try to carry that right through to the election.
All right.